But that's different from saying that there are certain areas where we deserve to question our own history that haven't been questioned. And I think that that's the difference we need to draw. The distinction we need to draw is one thing to beat a dead horse and hate ourselves for the sake of hating ourselves. That's what the modern left does. But that's not what Tucker's doing. To the contrary, he's turning over rocks that haven't really been turned over, rolling over logs that deserve to be rolled over and seeing what crawls out. Sometimes maybe there's nothing there. Is he going to have a 100% hit rate? Of course not.
Vivek Ramaswamy just went off on neocons such as Ben Shapiro, Jeremy Boring, and the rest of the Daily Wire, who have been attacking Tucker Carlson for Tucker's appearance over on Joe Rogan for an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, where they simply asked a few questions. And that's the crime that they're being convicted of. That's a crime that the Daily Wire is trying to come after Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson for simply asking questions, because we're not supposed to be doing that. We're just supposed to blindly believe every single thing that the government and mainstream media tells us. And if not, then you're not a real conservative. And in Jeremy Boring and the Daily Wire's own words, you're not a critical thinker. This tweet here is from James Jeanette. It says, Vivek continues to be a shining voice of reason as he addresses the conservative voices, in air quotes, who try and belittle people like Tucker Carlson for the heinous crime of asking questions. I think it's a mistake that many conservatives make what they try to tell people to shut up, sit down, and do as they're told. That's what the modern progressive left does. Let's not make the same mistake in return. And whenever people are talking about the woke right wing, they're talking about people like the Daily. Well, I think that the woke right describes the Daily Wire perfectly, who are literally telling you what Vivek Ramaswamy is saying right here, to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told, or else you're not a critical thinker, because you're not supposed to ask any questions. You're supposed to just do as you're told. So Vivek Ramaswamy saw Ben Shapiro saying stuff like this.
So why is Tucker just abandoning the moral equation here at all? What is he doing here? That's what's sort of fascinating. Now, I think to understand what Tucker's doing here, you have to understand that this particular interview included a lot of conspiratorial thinking. There's a lot of conspiracy theorizing in this particular.
It's a Joe Rogan podcast, dude. That's what happens.
Interview, ranging from the CIA killing JFK to 9/11 might be an inside job kind of stuff. Asking questions about Tower 7, then that might bring further questions about, like, if Tower 7 was brought down, for example, by a force inside the United States, then what exactly happened with the other two towers and all the rest of this sort of stuff. So what's going on here? I mean, really, it's a serious question. What's going on here with Tucker? So he tries to explain it. He says that he was actually radicalized by 2017. That basically until 2017, he believed a lot of narratives that were told by the government and by the mainstream media. And then after 2016, 2017, when it appeared that the intelligence community was militarized against Donald Trump, this is what radicalized him into basically becoming uber critical of everything. This is his.
And this was Vivek Ramaswamy's response to people like Ben Shapiro saying stuff like that, and the rest of the Daily Wire, which we'll go over throughout this clip here from this masterful response from Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's check this out.
9/11, shut up. Yeah. UFOs, you're crazy. You know what I mean? I just I had this reflexive. I'm ashamed of it. I'm not bragging about it, but it was 2017, and really it was the Trump campaign. It wasn't that I was like so in love with Trump, though I've always liked Trump because he's like hilarious and charming and all that. But I wasn't like a Trumper or anything. But it was watching that campaign, and particularly his claim that they were spying on him, and I was like, really? You're not. The intel services and federal law enforcement, FBI, do not spy on presidential campaigns. Like, that's so out of the realm. That's so crazy.
I find it fascinating that many conservatives are now lambasting Tucker Carlson for asking certain hard questions about narratives we've been fed by the government. Do I agree with Tucker on all of his views? Of course not. I don't agree with anybody on 100% of their views. That would be a weird thing to do. But I also think it's a weird thing to do to lambast somebody for questioning certain narratives when, in fact, that's what it means to be a skeptical citizen of a truly democratic nation. I'll tell you where it comes from, though. I'm not just going to tar somebody on their side. Let's get to the heart of what's going on there. I think we as conservatives have appropriately been fed up by the self-loathing left that has repeatedly, for 160 years and for the last 6 years incessantly, questioned the founding of our country, obsessing over systemic racism and white rage and the original sin of slavery at our founding. And at a certain point, all of us, most conservatives I know, myself included, Tucker included, others, are saying enough with it already. Let's move forward.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
As one country, because we've beaten that dead horse to death. There's nothing more to say. Now, back in 1960, when you didn't have necessarily equal rights enjoyed across this country, that was still a relevant conversation to have, to say, well, slavery existed all the way through the Civil War. The Reconstruction era didn't quite put an end to those inequities. How are we going to deal with it in the Civil Rights Revolution? That was a reasonable discussion to have. But now we're 60 plus years after that, and at a certain point, it's time to move on. And if you're consistently still obsessing over narratives dating back over 250 years, then yes, that means you probably do in some measure hate this country. Fine. But that's different from saying that there are certain areas where we deserve to question our own history that haven't been questioned. And I think that that's the difference we need to draw. The distinction we need to draw is one thing to beat a dead horse and hate ourselves for the sake of hating ourselves. That's what the modern left does. But that's not what Tucker's doing. To the contrary, he's turning over rocks that haven't really been turned over, rolling over logs that deserve to be rolled over and seeing what crawls out. Sometimes maybe there's nothing there. Is he going to have a 100% hit rate? Of course not.
But isn't it better, as Vivek Ramaswamy is saying here, let me know in the comments, because I'm sure there's some Daily Wire fans who just believe everything that the Daily Wire says and, just religiously follows them. Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with me and with Vivek Ramaswamy and with Tucker and with Joe Rogan and the rest of us that it's better to ask more questions than needed than to not ask any questions at all, and to be, as Jeremy Boring calls it right here in this tweet, not a critical thinker if you ask any of these questions? Jeremy Boring tweeted this out right after the Tucker Carlson appearance over on Joe Rogan. He said, people who deny the moon landing or suggest America is evil for its use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, or who say that George Bush was behind 9/11 actually hate this country. Those are the three things that were brought up by Tucker Carlson. That's not a coincidence. I don't care what anyone says. And obviously you can see the ratio that he got on here. Not very good in the Daily Wire in Jeremy Boring's favor. But I don't think Tucker Carlson was saying America is evil for its use of atomic weapons. Tucker Carlson was saying that if you vehemently defend the use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, and you have no moral question, for 100% fact that was the right call to kill all those innocents, then you are evil. If you 100% defend that without questioning it at all, which Jeremy Boring and the Daily Wire do, because that's just who they are. And he also wasn't saying that George Bush 100% did 9/11. He's just saying there's some questionable things that revolve around 9/11. And he didn't say 100% we didn't land on the moon. He was just saying, hey, maybe we should look a little bit more into the moon landing. And you don't have to agree with all of these things being fake or being nefarious or anything like that. But I think it's good questions to ask regardless. It's better, like I said, to ask more questions than to ask none at all, like the Daily Wire wants you to do. And Lauren Chen has a great response to this. She says, if you question the government, you hate your country. It's basically what Jeremy Boring is saying here. And spot on. That is what he's saying there. Anyway, back to Vivek Ramaswamy's response here.
But I don't think it's the right thing to do, especially as conservatives who are supposed to be skeptical of the government, to criticize somebody for asking questions, and not just in an armchair way, but in a rigorous way, asking the kinds of questions that at least the American people deserve to have answers to and closure on. I think that's a good thing.
I mean, the guy he's a journalist, and a good one. Like, he is the one that got, I believe, the very first one that got the J6 tapes released in their entirety. I don't even know if he ever actually released them all, but I know that Tucker Carlson had the J6 tapes in his possession, and he released a lot of them back on Fox. So the guy he's a real journalist. Like, he talks to people. He has a lot of connections. If someone is questioning someone, who would you believe more than Tucker Carlson if you're a conservative? If he's questioning a certain narrative to the government or a certain narrative that the mainstream media has been spreading to us, who would you believe more than Tucker? Like, I know that might sound insane to some people, but the guy has a lot of connections. He's not brainwashed by social media. I don't even think the guy has a computer or a television. He just has a smartphone where he posts his stuff for like his brand. So he's not brainwashed, really. I mean, I'm not saying that I 100% believe everything that Tucker Carlson ever says or everything that he ever questioned. I'm just saying it's better to have someone like Tucker questioning things than not questioning things. I think that should be unanimously agreed upon, but apparently it's not when it comes to the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro and them.
And whether you're liberal or conservative, I think you actually do love this country if you're willing to ask those hard questions. And that's why I think it's a mistake, an unintentional mistake that many conservatives make when they try to tell people to shut up, sit down, and do as they're told. That's what the modern progressive left does. Let's not make the same mistake in return.
I think it's safe to say that the Daily Wire will once again be shilling for Ron DeSantis whenever the next election comes around, regardless of who wins this one. because I'm sure Vivek Ramaswamy will be the front runner, and they're not going to like this one. I guarantee you that. The Daily Wire is not going to like Vivek Ramaswamy directly coming out and defending Tucker Carlson's appearance on Joe Rogan and kind of going after the stuff that the Daily Wire was saying and the names that the Daily Wire was calling Tucker Carlson for. Apparently, he's not a critical thinker, and anyone who's asking those questions are also not critical thinkers. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about Vivek Ramaswamy's response to the Daily Wire's meltdown to Tucker Carlson's appearance over on Joe Rogan. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and hope to see you guys on the next one.